Hey guys, welcome back to the 429 podcast. I'm Nine,
I'm four.
And I'm too.
and today we got a special topic for you guys. Today we're gonna be talking about finance, everyone's favorite topic. I know, very exciting. But before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone remembers to like, follow us, and look at us
Subscribe!
subscribe. We have so many
For
different
the love of God.
platforms. We have on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Check us all out. We're always constantly engaging with our fans. We'd love to hear your feedback on what you guys think. So please reach out to us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But let's not waste any time. This week's topic is going to be: should everyone learn personal finance? Now, I think we're pretty much have a similar stance on this, but let me go over what that basically means. So this is strictly speaking for American education system, right? But currently, go into the education system in the USA. Essentially, personal finance will entail learning like how to write a check, how to manage and balance your savings. APR, zero interest. Learn all these kind of things that I think is essential, essentially, in becoming a financially irresponsible adult in today's age, right?
Yeah.
So it's not even difficult things. I guess you can include how to do your taxes too. That may be also included there too, but nothing crazy. You don't have to learn, linear algebra or anything like that. It just, stuff beyond they just teach in the education system, unfortunately. And pretty much that's what we'll be focusing on. Should this be included in the education system? What are the pros and cons? And what are our stance on that? So, Four, let me start with you right now. Just give me quickly, what do you think?
So, I think it's obvious that personal finance is an extremely important topic, and everyone, in order to be like a fully functioning adult, really kind of needs to know and understand how to handle their own finances, right? But
yeah,
I'm still kind of in the boat of, I don't know whether or not a school should completely handle this, or whether or not some of this should be kind of, pushed off to your parents and your family household and whatnot, right?
Because, I see.
I mean, at the end of the day, not everyone has the same, I guess, kind of mantra for personal finance. Some people will handle it different ways, right? So, is there some standard way? Is there some standard route that the school can go to teach everybody, this is how you should be handling your finances, right? Like, because what works for me might not work for you, right? Everyone has their own different circumstances. So I think that if a school's going to teach you, it kind of needs to be very generalized. Maybe just teaching them about the topics, how to do general things, not kind of trying to push them into like living their life a certain way, because that won't work for every circumstance. But at the same time, I do think that parents have to play a certain role in educating their kids on personal finance, right? So I know I didn't really go through a whole lot of personal finance classes in school. Believe it or not, I think in most of America, personal finance isn't even a required class, right? So I took one personal finance class, but by the time I took it, it was already late in my high school career, and I already kind of knew most of this stuff because I had been working and, paying bills at that point. So, I kind of picked most of that up on my own and from my parents, right? I turned 16, got a job, go to my dad or my mom, was like, hey, I want to go open a bank account. Like, can you help me with that? And then, what do we do? Went to the bank, they helped me open an account, right? Eventually, maybe a year later, 6 months later, I got a credit card, my first one, and I kind of followed their advice of like, pay all your bills on time, try not to buy things you don't have the money for, obviously, right? If you can pay your bills before they're due and not get charged interest, obviously that's ideal. So, there's different, I guess, strategies, there's different things you can do, and I do think that it kind of needs to be balanced between your parents should definitely help instill some of their values in you, especially if, the values that they've been following are working, right? Obviously, not all parents have the best financial situation and aren't, well educated in personal finance themselves. And this is why I think the school should maybe pick up some of the slack, just because, maybe you can just instill some good value in those kids, regardless of how their household is.
Yeah, those are very strong points especially the aspect I didn't even think about, the whose responsibility falls on who's teaching, right, on this, such as school, parents, and stuff like that. And those are strong points to think about. What do you think, too? What is your stance on this?
Yeah, so I guess I'm kind of in the same realm with Four here, but I guess just from my own personal experience, right? I kind of learned the hard way, right? Spent money, right? Realized from early on in my, childhood career, I was always like, my childhood was basically like, okay, I want to go buy that pack of gum from the ice cream truck, or I want to buy a handball from the ice cream truck, right? For those of you in New York, it was a Mr. Softy, which is amazing, right? My New Yorkers know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But yeah, it was like, so $5 for that. All right. Now the next question in my head was like, all right, how do I get $5? There's an easy way when you're a kid. It's like, all right, hey mom, can I have $5? No. Okay, cool. Now what's the next way? Like, and then that's when you start doing like little jobs, right? Like you're like, okay, let me just go pick up this paper, copy machine paper in my school, take it from one classroom to the other, and I'll get $1 for doing it, right?
Okay, hold on 1 second, just real quick. Where are you paying $5 for a handball? What the heck?
Actually, I got it for $1 back in the day. It was like $5 for this one specific pack of gum I wanted. It was $1 for the handball. This is way back when, right? But like now it's like $5. But
hopefully.
But like, yeah, like so I'm trying to earn like little side gig stuff. Like I used to help around the house and try to like do things that like earn a little like side cash for myself, right? So that was, I guess, my first foray into like personal finance, right? And then you tend to learn the value of money as you get older and you start working, right?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest chunk of personal finance knowledge really came from me was like, towards the end of high school, where it was kind of like, all right, I'm starting to go out a little with my friends. Like maybe we go to like, the local Applebee's to get like food or something, right? And stuff like that. So you kind of like look into your like bank account and go like, okay, how do I like portion my money exactly? Obviously I'm not working, so it's like I got to be a little more careful and stuff like that, right? Then when you get into college, right, you sort of start building a sustainable, income set. And by sustainable, I don't mean like you can live off of it, right? I mean sustainable in the sense that there's money coming in and you're also spending money because there's money going out, right?
Yep.
So it's like I may be paying for parking, gas, some textbooks or stuff like that, but I'm working my teaching assistant job on campus to earn that money and to keep track of it, right? And then for me, finance has always been my interest, right? I've always understand finance on like a grander level for like businesses and stuff. But now how does that apply to my own personal, right, is a whole other kind of realm. And so I kind of just started just probing around, looking into it, started reading up on the stock market, was introduced to the stock market in high school. So played around a little bit with the stock market when I was younger, right? Obviously lost money, but like happens, right?
Obviously.
Nine, still sorry about that horrible investment back in freshman year. But like, right? It's like these little things. It's really, for me, it was really just trial and error, right? Like I could have done everything in the world. I could have just read all the books. Like I've read all the personal finance books now, right? And I'll be real with you. I'm not a big fan of how most of these personal finance books are written, right? I'm just not. Because they, like Forrest said, they all follow the same philosophy. There's no one right way of doing your finances. What may work for me, right, and help me save money may be a horrible way for four, and it may cost four thousands of dollars, right, in cost that way, right? So it just doesn't make sense. And it's, I guess, personal finance. There's a reason it's called personal finance, right? It's because it's adherent and it's personal to you.
Yep.
Right? There's no one right way, I think, personally, of teaching it. No pun intended there, right? But like Four said, like he had the advantage of learning it in high school through like a high school class or something, right? At least the most basic foundations of it. That I think is a huge step up from everything else. Like it is. Like I learned how to write a check from family members. I learned how to send a letter in the mail from family members. I learned how to pay bills from family members, right? It's like I had the support of my family, thankfully, to rely on to help me teach me some of these things. And that's the key thing here. And now later on, I had the support of friends, right? Like Nine, you were the one who recommended me for my first credit card, right?
Yeah.
So it's like once you get older, you kind of see like what all your other friends are doing, and they kind of help you out here. I have a friend who's a real estate agent, right? He gave me a whole breakdown of how mortgages and like interest rates and all this other stuff work, right? And it's like you kind of just learn and build through your network as you get older. And am I going to have hiccups down the line? Absolutely, right? Like I'm probably going to flop and make another horrible purchase here or another horrible purchase there, some other thing there, right? But like what's important is, the base core foundations. And I think I've picked those up as I've learned. And I think that's the best way really to pick up personal finance, in my opinion. But, that's mostly just me. And I would say personally, the biggest kicker for personal finance that really kicked it into like high drive when I took out student loans. I have to say student loans were kind of a blessing in disguise. And I say blessing in disguise because, obviously I have to pay the loan back, right? Which sucks. But it's a blessing in disguise because it really makes you sit down for a minute as a 17, 18-year-old and really think for a second, like, holy shit, like $300,000 is a lot of money. Can I pay that back when they ask me for the money back?
You mean you need
right?
to pay back student loans? What?
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware of that, but like in the States, you have to pay back student loans. Like, I mean, maybe we'll see how the election plays out. But like, yeah, like you really have to like think for a second, like, am I going to be able to pay this money back? Mm-hmm. Am I going to be able to sustain myself, right, with this? Yep. Yeah, it may be nice for 4 years. I'm getting a free ride with like the $700,000 I took out in loans, right? Come after college, can I pay that money off? Yes or no, right? And so I guess my mindset from when I took out student loans until I'm trying to pay them off now is like, how can I earn as much money as possible quick so that I could pay off these loans,
with
right?
the least
and I could
amount
support
of loans
myself.
Taken out.
Exactly. And that's the key thing here. And I think that's something people don't realize. And I think the personal question here should not be, should personal finance be taught? I think the question really here, like that's scratching the surface, is how do you teach people the value of money?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Because you have people, right, who wouldn't bat an eye at buying the newest iPhone model or buying the latest Lamborghini or buying a Pablo Picasso.
On credit or something like that. She would be even worse.
Wait, $3.99 for paper towels? I don't know, man. I could get it for $2.99 down the street, right? Like,
yep.
It's a big difference. It really depends on each of those things.
And, like you said, everyone is different, right? So was something that you could justify doing, right? Like you can say, hey, you know what? Maybe I won't spend the extra money on this. I want to save that money, right? Now, for example, if you listen to like any financial guru or financial expert on YouTube or read any book, one of the things they'll tell you is the worst possible thing you can do is like to get coffee, right? Like never buy coffee anywhere, right?
I hate that advice.
It's a huge expense, and like they're 100% right. It is a huge wasted expense, right? I can make a pot of coffee at home, and it's like 12 cents for me to get a cup of coffee, right? Maybe plus a little bit of milk, maybe 30 cents. There you go. I've got my coffee now. But for me, like, let's talk about maybe when I was doing, our master's graduate research, I spent so much time in Starbucks because, like, that was where I liked to work. I worked best there, right? So I'd go there every day and use it literally like an office space, right? So now there I am in Starbucks on my laptop 3-4 hours a day, and I'm buying a cup of coffee, 2 cups of coffee every day in Starbucks. Like, could I have sat at home or sat at our school's like lab? Like, sure, I could have done that, but like, I was working most comfortably in there. Like, I enjoyed going in Starbucks, getting coffee. It breaks up a monotonous day, right? So like, there's more value to the cup of to going out to get a cup of coffee than just the coffee, right? There's added value to it, and sometimes I think it's necessary. Maybe every day is overkill, but a couple days a week, maybe a couple days a month, like going out to get coffee. For me, that's a worthy expense.
Okay, but like here, I'll do some quick math for you, right? Say you bought coffee every day except the weekends. Like say you're working, you're 9 to 5, right? So it's 5 days a week times. Say the cup of coffee is $3.99 every day, right? $3.99. That's about $20 a week. You multiply that by 52 weeks in a year. That's $1,000.
Yep.
Okay, that's $1,000 of coffee roughly you're spending, right?
Absolutely.
Fine.
Easily, probably.
What's the big? Okay, so that's $1,000. And now what I always love is these personal finance gurus are always like, yeah, but if you put it in the stock market, it'll get you like 8% return. You'll be sitting on an extra $80 at the end of the day, right? Fine. You're sitting on that extra $80. What's the point of money if you can't enjoy it? If I'm enjoying spending $3 on a cup of coffee every morning just so like it's my morning routine or I want to just go and get it or whatever, right? What's the big issue with that? I think there's much bigger expenses you can cut out that you may not even realize you have versus that cup of coffee that's not going to kill you at the end of the day, right?
Yep.
You can also justify that cup of coffee in another way, right? You give a perfect example. You bought that cup of coffee at, cup of coffee at Starbucks, and now you're sitting there with the cup of coffee and it's clearing your head and the environment you're working in is letting you produce an amazing thesis paper, for example, right? Would you really want to lose your train of thought for 30 minutes to go brew a pot of coffee, pour it in, making sure the milk and all this is correct, and then worrying about it? No.
Nope.
Right? Like, it's such a pain. And I think that's the biggest difference. Yeah, you could save that extra $3, but if you're what I consider that $3, the way I'm really seeing it for in your case, it's an investment.
Yep.
Right? It's an investment in yourself to make sure you're happy, you're okay, and you're in a comfortable environment to do things. I see all those people who buy Starbucks at 9 a.m. on the Starbucks in every Starbucks in Manhattan or every Starbucks in the world at 9 a.m. Monday morning. I don't see that as a waste of money. No. I see that as, hey, they're investing in themselves for their own mental health or their self-keeping or whatever to get them boosted and ready for the day.
And it's so funny because like you just said, you brought up mental health, and like it's really true that like even just something as simple as like, let me stop in Starbucks, right? Like that quick chat you might have with your barista, or maybe you say something to someone online, right? Like these are small interactions that like add to your day, right? Like they just help break things up. They make things more enjoyable. Like everyone likes social, or I guess most people like social interaction, right? Like it's just enjoyable to like see new people and talk to people you don't know. And
the biggest thing, right? And these personal finance gurus are like, yeah, but you can save this money. Personally, I see the way I see money is you have money as a means to an end, right? Mm-hmm. The means to an end, I would hope for most people is like their happiness or their well-being or their self or their mental health or whatever it may be, right? If you're getting the $3.99 for coffee just so you can screw over your mental health, like that's kind of stupid to me, because like that's the whole point of money, right? Or it's like, now there's other things that you could possibly do to save that expense, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of the $3.99 for coffee, say, for example, you have a Netflix subscription you haven't used in 7 months, right?
Yep.
That's like $15 a month right there. Do you know how many cups of coffee that is right there? That's literally your coffee.
Maybe you and your significant other like to go out once or twice a month, right? Maybe if you want to be able to have coffee every week, instead of going to that 5-star restaurant, having, $30, $45 steaks or whatever, right? Maybe take it a notch down, right? Maybe you go to that 4-star restaurant and you have, the $19 steak instead, right? You could still go out, have that same enjoyable experience, yet you could still have your coffee every single day, and now you've just taken that money and put it back in your pocket, right? This is why I say it's important to just realize that everyone has their own, like, I guess, preferences.
It's personal. Exactly.
This is why it's personal, right? Now, at the end of the day, you still have the same amount of money to work with every month, regardless of how you spend it. So, like, really, all you're going to do is it's just a game of allocating your spending properly where you want it to go for you.
I agree. Yep. And I would be, for all of you who are listening out there, I would just encourage all of you to pop open a Google Sheets or an Excel sheet or whatever it may be, right? And just list your expenses. List where the money is coming in. List where money is going out. Figure out what your total expenses are, right? And then from that point, seriously, just take a look at that list and be like, all right, is everything really necessary on this thing? Like, I'll tell you myself, right? I spend every week, right? This is every week I do this, right? Which is why I'm fat. Every week I go to this local burrito place by my place, right? I go to this local burrito place every Wednesday, right? And I get myself a burrito, right? Do I need to spend $9 on a burrito on Wednesdays instead of making a chicken sandwich in the house? No. But I look forward to that every Wednesday because that's my excuse to get out of the house and my excuse to enjoy myself a little, right? It's like, why work so hard? Why bust my ass 60, 80 hours a week if I can't enjoy a simple burrito down the street, right? But Nine, what are your thoughts? I know we've kind of haven't heard much from you so far.
I mean, you guys have been pretty much sharing points and basically essentially advice that I've kind of been echoing and been following for the last couple of years of my life. Similar things. I've been in very different financial situations, I think I say, throughout my life. I've been in points where I guess
every dollar counts.
Every dollar counts. I've been places where I would say now I'm a little bit more, I guess, have more breathing room, But I have been in situations where every dollar counts. Every expense has been calculated. And pretty much I knew that there was no income coming. So whatever money I had was basically every money I had.
Yep.
But it's definitely, personal finance is an important thing that I think the biggest issue, and I think this is what we've pretty much been advocating from the start, is that it doesn't matter. It's not a question of should it be taught, but how soon should it be taught? I think we all face situations where we had to be taught it give without even our approval. We just put in situations where pretty much
you had to learn it, or you couldn't survive.
Yeah. I think the only one that was pretty much, I guess, had the most safest entry into it was 4, when he's like, he kind of like started a job and he wanted to take that initiative, and he kind of like spoke with his parents and he got advice, But most of the time, sooner or later, on average, you're gonna be put in financial situations where you kind of have to learn it. Otherwise, you're gonna lose hard, and it's gonna burn you for not even now, but for who knows years to come.
Yeah.
So honestly, yeah, personal finance should be taught, but I think we go down to the issue now what Forrest echoed earlier. Should it be taught in school primarily? Is it the parents' responsibility to teach it, or what else? What are the alternatives?
What? It sucks because to your point, you may have everyone's put into other random situations. So I can't tell you that like, okay, it's your parents' responsibility to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because you may not have parents who are personal finance literate, and that's okay, right? So you'll be that generation that breaks that trend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, should I think it should be taught in school? To an extent, right? I think you shouldn't have to go into like the nitty gritty of details and stuff like that, right? But I think basics should be taught. Like, hey, list out your expenses and where you're spending money.
Yep.
That's it.
And it works so much better when, like, for example, a lot of this advice that we've given, it works really well for someone that's like coming fresh into like needing that type of advice, or someone that already doesn't have crippling debt and is maybe looking to like kind of like allocate their spending better. A lot of stuff we've said won't necessarily work if like you already have some type of crippling debt, and this is why it's really important to take this stuff seriously from the very get-go, right? Because that cup of coffee, maybe you can allocate your spending to get it in your day, right? But if you've got $40,000 of credit card debt, like you shouldn't be getting that coffee no matter how much you want it. You shouldn't be going on date night either, right? Like you should be putting all of your money back into that debt that's definitely weighing you down the most.
Now, to be fair, I understand some people may not be in those situations where they can do that, right? I sympathize with those out there who are working jobs that like your job income won't exceed your expenses, because whether it's due to like you may be a single parent, whether it's due to you're on your own, you got to pay rent and the bills and healthcare and this and that, right? Like, we understand, life gets very, very difficult, right? We've all been in that situation, right? To those people, what I could really say is just figure out, I guess you would have to sit down and figure out your personal situation yourself and what you can personally do to improve that, right? If it means, like, okay, maybe you go back to school and have to get another degree while still working that same job at night so that you can improve yourself in the future, maybe that's the route to take. Or maybe it's putting in maybe a couple extra hours at work every week to maybe make that income again, or maybe just get that promotion or that job transfer over to a similar place, right? So that you can increase your wage. We understand times are tough, especially now with COVID, right? It's really tough, right? Or maybe there might be even government programs that you can take advantage of if you're in the States or outside of the States, maybe in Europe or something, that could really help you. Because it sucks. What sucks here is that, like, until you get put in those situations, that personal finance stuff doesn't really hit you. Right? Like, until you're put into the situation where, hey, I owe 50 grand and there's creditors knocking on my door, that's when it really like hits you. Like, how do I help myself from there, right?
I don't know if you guys have ever seen this guy called Dave Ramsey on YouTube. He's got his like a podcast and a show, whatever, but he's kind of like really, really gung-ho, and like he's got all of this advice about, don't ever have any debt. Like, for him, debt is the number one worst thing that you can ever have. And essentially, like, all of his advice to all of his listeners, he's got a pretty big show at this point. But his advice almost always follows, like, you have car debt? Well, guess what? Like, get rid of the car, finish paying it off, whatever you can get rid of, and then get a cheap beater car for like $3,000 until you can get in a car that's better, right? Like, get yourself out of that bad situation as quickly as possible, right? Like, you have credit card debt. Okay, you have $30,000 of debt. You make $30,000 a year. Well, the only way to resolve that is to put as much money into the debt as you can and to increase your income, right? So if you're making $30,000 a year, maybe you have to find a pathway to make 60, or maybe you might have to work more. Like, I've heard him on his show tell people over and over again, like, some of these people are in their 20s and their 30s. It's like, you're 25 or 30 something, have that much debt. Like, you're still young, right? Go work the 100 hours a week you need to work to get rid of that debt, right? No one's going to come resolve that for you.
And like, look, it's not going to be easy, right? We've all had our ups and downs with this thing. I can't tell you like during some finals week where I had to work as a TA just to, you know, make an ends meet or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or where like things happen and stuff like that, right? It sucks. Like for himself at work, like 3 jobs at one point during college just to support him and his loans, right? So it's like we've all been in these situations where it's like you need to be able to just go out and do this. You know, Nine's no exception either. Nine worked,
Mm-hmm.
I think, 3 jobs also at one point. God damn, guys. Right? Like to support not only him, but his family as well. So
right.
it's like...
Well, there's a cost to living the lifestyle you want to live, right? There's a cost to that. And like, if I want to be able to live a certain way, you've got to be willing to put in the work to live that way.
Like it doesn't get any easier, right? It gets harder and harder.
Absolutely.
But, you know, but eventually it pays off, and we hope it pays off, right? Like, and I'd say the best advice I can really provide on this personal finance aspect is, right, like, just keep your head down and keep going with it. Because, like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not a 1-day thing or a 2-day thing, right? It's like exercise, right? For me, it's a lack of exercise,
Mm-hmm.
but like it's not just a 1-day or 2-day or twice a week kind of thing. It's an everyday, you know, kind of thing, right? You need to keep yourself motivated and keep going every day. And my best advice to keep yourself motivated, you know, 90% of you guys are on social media, right? Like, follow social media posts and pages that have all this. I'm sure if you just Google like personal finance in your Instagram search bar or whatever, right? Like, you'll find a shit ton of pages that come up with all this.
Joe is always sending us these like kind of Instagram posts where it's like, you know, like business, like positive things and like, you know, all like end goal stuff and like kind of, you know, cut bad things out of your life. And it's like, these are the kind of pages that's like, okay, you know what, maybe I should read them. They're kind of like good to just be reminded of.
Yeah, like it's a nice gentle reminder to like help you keep yourself on track. And then look up, you know, the best thing I could say is look up success stories.
Yep.
There's been so many success stories I've seen, right? Especially within the last few years where now it's getting more mainstream to publish this kind of stuff on news articles and everything, right?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like, oh, these 2 people who were like 28, you know, coming out of college with $300,000 of loans or whatever, they busted their ass and paid it off. They got married with $300,000 in debt they owed. They busted their ass, they paid it off, and now they're making, you know, like $50,000, maybe more a year. Right?
All this being said, you do also need to be careful because there are a lot of very misleading. There's a lot of misleading information out there from people who are just trying to make their own money off of you, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure you guys have all gotten those YouTube ads like, "This is me, and this is my bookshelf, and look at my Lamborghini over there. Like, you want to live like me. You want to live like me, so go buy my stuff." And it's like, you know, you don't need to go buy his stuff to live like him. Like, you don't need to do that. Like, there's so much information readily available for free on the internet where you don't have to, you know, get the last, you're the millionth person, get this book for 99% off for my plan. It's usually $12,000, but for you, I'm giving it for 60. Like, no, that's not true. Like, you don't need to do that. So, I mean, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff like that right now. So just be careful with that is what I would say if you plan on finding information.
And they're all fake too, because like it's kind of, Instagram has had unfortunately kind of a cesspool of kind of promoting a lifestyle that not even any normal people or even they even experience. Those Lamborghinis you see, those jet planes that they constantly post in, or those, you know, lavish outfits that they wear and those haircuts. They're airplanes. Those are just a set that they purchased to rent out to take the picture.
Nine actually sent us this post the other day that actually showed us that it was a legitimate set. And it's the guy who runs the set business who posted it. And I thought that was the funniest thing ever.
That's a true financial genius right there. The guy who owns the set, who's selling it out to the Instagram stars. But like even the outfits they wear, they buy it, they wear it, they return it. The haircuts, they do it, or they have a friend that does it, and they post it and they completely look normal. Or they even like tweak and Photoshop certain aspects to look legit.
100%.
It comes down to how so many people unfortunately can't see it. You know, they're really good at essentially hiding the truth of the lifestyle they are, and a lot of people become kind of like in doubt of themselves and of like blame themselves for everything.
I kind of had a little bit of a wake up of financial literacy probably sometime last year. I'm sure you guys remember on Instagram all the people that were going around like those octagons, and it was like, I'm in the center now, you all pay $100 and like Like these are like actual Ponzi schemes. Like it's a legitimate Ponzi scheme. Like whoever makes those is probably, I'm pretty sure they're positively violating actual law. Like, so I'm pretty
sure it's actually a textbook definition of Ponzi scheme. Yeah, like, verified and everything.
Like it actually is. Like I looked it up and I found it and I was like, yeah, this literally is the definition of a Ponzi scheme. I think it was the SEC's definition of a Ponzi scheme. And like, you know, I just couldn't believe how many people were like, okay, here's $100 to some guy I maybe talked to a dozen times, like maybe years ago, and like you just automatically trust it, and like the whole system just didn't make any sense, and yet you still had dozens of people hopping in on these things, and like, you know, maybe a handful of people got paid out, but do you know how many people didn't get paid out? Hundreds of people didn't get paid out for every one that did. So
you also have to remember that the people who do fall for this, right? We're not calling them idiots. We're not calling them like they should have known better.
But some people have to learn the hard way.
Well, it's not even that. I was gonna say it's just people are unfortunately in financial situations where their emotions kind of cloud their best judgment.
Absolutely.
You know, that happens tons of times where they're essentially grasping for straws, and they're basically putting everything on hope. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not because they don't know any better. Some of them, I bet you, a lot of them do know there's a huge risk they're going to, but they're in such a financial dire situation that they literally think this is the best way out of them. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it kind of clouds their best judgment. It happens so many times.
Absolutely.
And it's so easy to blame them on the outside, being like, you should have seen it coming. I mean, come on. It's a clear
what? This just goes back to why it's so important that financial literacy and personal finance is something that you start teaching at a very young age.
100%. You want to basically put them far away from that situation.
Yep.
The point of all this, to educate with most things of education, is essentially prevent them from even being in that situation that they had to learn. Dire.
I think we actually did discuss like Bernie Madoff in my personal finance class at some point. I forget the conversation, but I'm pretty sure that this was something we discussed in my high school class, right? And like, you know, that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I would recommend to those, you know, people out there, right? I would recommend reaching out to some public resources in your community or in your area and see who provides, you know, personal finance, you know, advice, right? Make sure they're, you know, have a fiduciary responsibility, right? So fiduciary meaning like they're acting in your best favor. By law, they need to act in your best favor, right? So make sure they're fiduciary responsible and reach out to them, right? Like I have a few people I know who work at, actually my cousin himself, he works at Fidelity as a personal finance, you know, expert.
Yep.
And he provides, like I always talk to him all the time, and he provides advice to people like how they should invest or how they should get out of debt or how they should like focus on their future and everything. And what's nice now, you know, during these COVID times, I guess you can also say is a blessing in disguise, right? Is these guys are all fully online now. So you don't even have to visit them in the office, right? You can just call them and give them a nice consultation phone call and be like, hey, like, can I talk to you for 15 minutes about my finances, right? And, you know, the initial calls are free. But if you want to continue with those services and everything, there's probably a small fee a month, I would expect, because, you know, Fidelity needs to make money too, or whatever other companies doing it needs to make money also.
Or some of them even offer those services free if you have, like, for example, if you have an account with them, right? So you have an account with them, you're doing business with them. Sometimes as part of you having that account with them, they'll offer those services for you for free.
Yeah, there's some finance, like your local banks or your municipal, what's it called? Those municipal places.
Yep.
I forgot the name of the municipal, I guess. I forgot what it's called, man. Damn, but it's your municipal like savings account places and credit unions. That's what it is. Your municipal credit unions, right? Or your like local commercial bank, right? Like a Chase or a Capital One or I don't know, like a Citibank or whatever, right? Or a SunTrust if you guys are in the South. Is like just go to them and sit with them for a little bit and try to figure out all of this, right? Like go ask for help. Like I think that's the biggest thing that people need to realize is, right, like even now, like money is the number one cause of divorces in the United States, as well as the number one causes of suicide in the United States, right? So it's like this is not something you're in alone, right? Reach out to resources that are by you, right? Whether it's your local bank, you know, some family members who are willing to help you, right? Because we all have those family members who are like, nah, I'm not gonna tell you my secret of how I got rich, right? It's like reach out to those family members who are willing to help you. Reach out to your local banks or commercial institutions and see how they could help you. Or just make a couple phone calls to these big corporations also, right, that are like located miles away from you and get some advice from them. Because they've been in it. You know, they've been they have people who got the certifications to fiduciary and do this for you, right, legally and in your best favor.
Yep.
Reach out to them. That's what these guys are here for.
And those guys are all actually registered with the SEC also. They have to, if you're going to be giving investment advice to clients for money, you need to be registered with the SEC. So there's even ways for you to kind of validate someone's credentials.
And the best thing I would also say is that, like, it may cost some money to get it done, but think of it also as like an investment, right? And just for an FYI, you know, 4, 9, and myself, you know, number 2, don't have any, you know, I would say like hand in any of these things. Like, with this is just stuff, you know, we've seen online and like Reddit subthreads. I'm a very heavy lurker on Reddit recently. So it's like, reach out to these guys and, like, you know, just talk to them for a little bit. Yeah, and it may cost, you know, you may end up paying like maybe $100 a month or something like that. I don't know what the fees are, but you may end up paying like $100 a month, and for the guy to consult with you and plan everything out with you and get it all done.
Just get the advice and that's it.
Exactly. Or you could just get the advice and call it a day, or make a continuous plan with that guy or girl, right? And the best thing for you is see it as an investment for yourself. You may be paying a financial planner or an advice giver $100 a month, but if he's helping you save $1,000, I think you could justify that as a $900 gain, right? So it's like, that's the way I would really just
the goal could be similar to that of like a personal trainer, right? So think about what a lot of people do with personal trainers. You want to learn how to work out. You get a personal trainer. You get familiar with the gym. You get familiar with the equipment, right? And then after a couple of weeks of training, you know, maybe you don't need the personal trainer anymore. You've learned everything, right? So
be like, Phil, I'll see you later, right? Like I don't need you no more.
That should be the end goal, right? You leverage other people that can help you get where you want to be, and then, you know, eventually you should be able to kind of be self-sufficient and take it on by yourself.
And then that's the thing, I think, goes back to your point, right? Is that'll help you teach your future generations, your future kids, personal finance from very early on, right? So don't even see it as just you're doing this for yourself now. See it as, you know, later down the line for your son or daughter.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to help them figure it out.
I think the three of us have pretty similar views in terms of, like, we're very family oriented, and, you know, every generation of family, you should aim to leave the next generation better off than you were.
100%. I mean, that's pretty much why we have family to support us. Mm-hmm. It's the idea that the shoulders that we stand on of our forefathers and such, right, is to provide support for the next generation and so on. You know, 100%. But I think we should also really discuss the method of how we provide these financial care. I think we're all right here and unanimous that financial knowledge is, especially personal financial knowledge, is a must, right?
Absolutely.
The faster we teach it, the better. We want to avoid these kids, especially the younger generation, to fall into these traps ahead of time. But now I want to kind of go back to what you said earlier in the beginning. You said you kind of, I'm not 100% sure on the idea of it being taught entirely or even mostly in classrooms. Can you elaborate on that?
So here, I'll give you a quick rundown of, I guess, my experience real quick, and then I'll tell you my thoughts. So,
perfect.
I've always kind of been working, probably since around the time I was in like 5th and 6th grade. I was a pool boy. I was cleaning my neighbors' pools. I would water their lawns and stuff. Like, I would do yard work or whatever. And, you know, probably between the time that I was maybe like 11 or so, and maybe a little bit later, but up until the time I was like graduating high school or whatever, I was working, literally doing all of this like yard work and pool stuff and for my neighbors. Yeah. And so I always had at least some type of income, literally for as long as I can remember, right? Like literally since I'm in like 6th grade or whatever.
Some sort of revenue.
Yeah, so like I always kind of was financially minded because, like, I had certain things I wanted, right? So I wanted to build a computer. That was one of the things I wanted when I was smaller and younger. And, you know, had this money, I have to know how to plan, right? I can't spend all my money on pizza and snacks. I can't go buy 3, 4, 5 video games for my Xbox and then still build a computer.
Yeah, see, that was me as a child.
Right?
I spent a lot of money on food.
You can't do those things and then also build a computer, right? So even from a very young age, I was kind of planning for this, right? And I guess that was just that was just something I knew I wanted, and that was what I had to do, right? I couldn't buy all those things and get it. It just made sense to me at that age, right? I don't think at that point I realized that this was like, personal finance, and like I was already starting to like plan financially, and I guess I kind of just carried those experiences forward and combined that with some advice from my parents, and then, eventually towards like my last year of high school, an actual personal finance class. But, I kind of just, for me at least, it was very natural where just throughout the course of my life, I started, working young, making money young. I had things I wanted to buy, and you just have to plan for it. And like, it was really nice to be able to have my parents kind of help with that, right? Because once I turned 16 and I got another job, a real job this time, at a store or whatever, then I opened up an actual bank account. It wasn't just freaking money in my piggy bank anymore. And, that was when I really started to take things more seriously and, put money in my savings and, have money in my checkings to cover bills and things and whatever. If I wanted to be able to have a Netflix subscription, I wanted to be able to play video games that required subscription, right? Like, these are now bills I've got to pay every month. So even throughout high school, I had a pretty lucky situation where, I was being exposed to these things very early. And, my parents had always, like I said, instilled those values in me, like, don't spend money you don't have, work for what you want to have, blah, 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 blah. And I think for the most part, I was mostly educated by my parents on this whole thing, as well as just some, like, I guess, natural knowledge of like, hey, I want this, what do I have to do to get that, right? Just me doing some deductions on how I want to live my life and whatever. But I do think that not everyone has that same situation, right? I think it's fairly rare nowadays for people as young as like, 6th grade to actually have any type of income. Like, that's almost nobody now. None of my siblings did. None of my cousins really did. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but at age like 11, 12, 13, at least in the States right now, it's far more uncommon to have people doing any work than it was, years ago. But that being said, I think that's a really good point to then start introducing personal finance, right? So now there's going to, since a lot of kids at that age bracket aren't working and won't have those experiences naturally, that's a good point to then introduce these topics into the classroom at that same time, right? Maybe I could have done a better job saving money, and I could have built my computer faster if, in 8th grade, I would have had a good teacher or a good class that kind of explained these things more in detail and made me have that realization of, hey, I'm actually doing personal finance and I could be doing it better, right? This would have been something I think would have been interesting to know. Obviously I'll never find out now, but I think that especially for people who won't have those experiences at a younger age, it's really, really beneficial to kind of introduce it at that same age.
100%. I agree with pretty much most of the points you made. You like I said, you were in a unique situation where you basically entered the workforce relatively early on, which kind of like, and because it was so early on, you had a lot of support from your family. You kind of position yourself in a way where you encounter these situations, these financial situations and these financial hurdles way early on, and which kind of prepared you for the rest of your life in a great way in a controlled environment, But I think to be devil's advocate, right? You even said it yourself. In this day and age, someone working that early is relatively rare.
Yeah.
Right? You're not gonna find most people in their 6th grade, working early. And I guess the key thing to learn from your experience would be, if possible, work early. Get into the workforce. I know a lot of kids in that age would be kind of scared, or I guess in this case, not even scared, but kind of like weirded out by the idea of working that early on in their life. But like you said, it doesn't have to be something grand, even something as being a pool boy or a newspaper boy. These things teach, they only give these kids revenue, they give them responsibility.
It was really good money too, because like I'm 12 or 13, I was making I think $200 a month at that point. And
look, that goes a long way when you're 12.
That goes a really long way.
That's a lot of bubblegum.
That's really all the money I ever needed.
I can start losing them all the time now.
And it was a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, right? Like I was waking up at 8 a.m. every Saturday to go clean his pool, top and bottom. Maybe once or twice a month. I was also up at 8 a.m. on Sunday to go give his pool a big scrub down because algae grows in the walls and whatnot. 3 times a week I was watering his grass after school and whatnot, right? And like I got to remember to go over, got to remember to shut it off, right? Like there's there was a lot that went into it. It was a I guess a big undertaking for me at 12
but
years
now
old.
you can say yourself.
But that's part of responsibility.
What's more? Yeah, but now you can say yourself what's more valuable to you than just that money you made was. One, now you have every knowledge of everything for a pool that if you ever choose to get a pool in the future, right? It could be like, nah, I can take care of all this myself. Or you'll be like, no, it's mad work. I'm never taking care of a pool again in my life, right? Or it also gave you the sense of, I guess, you can say self-worth that you look for as a kid, and a sense of, responsibility, which is kind of hard to find. It's like
it's exactly what kind of pushed me towards getting another job the moment I could, right? Like, I liked having money. I can do the things I want. It comes back to this like lifestyle you want to live, right? I was making $200 a month doing pool work for my neighbor. I'm turning 16 now. Maybe I want to start getting a car, want to go out to eat more, right? Want to do more fun things. I want more money in my pocket now. I want to increase my lifestyle. So I need to take on something that will increase my income, right? So now I had to go, got another job at another store, kept doing the pool work, whatever, and then whatever else I was making was just, more money on top of that. So now maybe instead of making $200 a month, I was making $600 or $800 a month, right? A lot more money now, a lot more money. And then that kind of just led me to continually being on this path of like, I want to live a better lifestyle, so I need to continually increase my income. Like that's what you have to do.
100%. And like I said, it taught responsibility at a young age, which is incredibly helpful and incredibly impressional on you as you go into the workforce and start taking on different jobs and different responsibilities going on. So it's just an all around benefit,
Yeah.
But I think we have to also remember, like, this is not normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of entering the workforce so early on. Not everyone may or may have the opportunity to do so, given their circumstances. It's hard to say. Some, like I'm thinking right now, in my case, I wouldn't be able to do that such early on because I had responsibilities at home.
Yep, absolutely.
I took care of my brothers. I had to help my parents with a lot of things, personal and financially. I was kind of like essentially the third caretaker in the family, So having even a side job like that wouldn't be viable with all the work and studies.
Which was exactly why I was still recommending at maybe about the 8th grade mark, that might be a good time for personal finance to be introduced in the classroom because, like I said, that's rare. Not everyone has the opportunity to have those experiences because of their at-home situation, and you still want to give those kids a shot at kind of understanding personal finance and increasing their likelihood of success going forward because of it.
And those kids deserve a shot at that success,
absolutely.
Right? Like,
absolutely.
And I think, to your point, I would go a little further and I would just do it not only in 8th, but I think it should be a required course again in your junior year of high school. And the reason I say junior year specifically, right,
college,
is because I think if you do it senior year, it's too late.
Yep.
Because by the time you get all the offer letters and everything, or maybe if you do it early in your senior year, fine. But by the time you get all your college applications and offers and everything in, right, and it's time to evaluate those financial lessons, maybe that's a good time to do it too because it'll give you the advantage and the strength to actually be like, okay, like, what can I do here? And I think for just a bunch of people, you just need to open their eyes on like what the value of $1 is, right? Like a simple water bottle you can't even get for $1 anymore, right?
No, it's like $25 now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like things have gotten expensive, and especially like you also have to see in the locations, right? Like this is something I focused on, recently because I've never really realized it, but like cost of living outside of just your own community, right? What's the cost of living if I moved, over a state or a country or anything, right? Like it really depends, right? Like what if you move to another country, it's all like I would say from my own personal thing, like my personal finance stuff is still like evolving and learning, right? And just seeing how all this goes because there's so much I still don't know, right? Like,
well, we're not experts by no means, right? None of us have ever gone through a mortgage situation, right? I mean, none of us have ever really had to buy a brand new car, right? I bought a used car, but I haven't spent, $40,000 on a new car, for example, right? Like those are experiences we haven't had. So we can only kind of speak from our own experiences,
limited knowledge,
having gone through the college system, having gone through graduate school, having gotten our first jobs out of school, right? Like, having now working through paying off the debt, right? What were the repercussions of our actions so far?
And I think you guys should listen into like we went into a tidbit of this for college in our I think it was is college worth it episode a couple episodes back, right? So it's definitely check that out as well and just give us your thoughts on all this. But it's called personal finance because it's personal. I think for the basics, you can give a class in 8th grade or 11th grade or everything, right? But it's truly a personal thing, and it's like everything else. You need to keep working at it, exercising at it for you to be the best possible thing for it, right? And if you're not good at personal finance, that's fine. That's not a big deal, right? Not everyone's good at everything, right? Absolutely. So even if you're not good at personal finance, there's still resources you guys can reach out to at your local banks or credit unions or even big corporations, right? That can help you go through all of this, right? Or do it for you, actually. You can actually pay a guy to do your finances for you every month, too. So it's
like we said, just please be careful with that. Find licensed professionals. Don't go to some Joe Schmo.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
100%. 100%. But, just to finish off, what's our current stance right now with personal finance? I know we're pretty much all headstrong on the idea everyone should be taught. But I know Ford already said his idea is that it should be kind of taught pretty early. But what do you think, too? Especially with how would you teach personal finance if you had control of the education system right now?
You know what? Again, each person's, situation is different. I can't speak for all situations, but what I can say is that the basics of finance in 8th grade should be taught how to write a check, how to send a letter, how to open a basic account, maybe even have students get their first, student savings or checking accounts, right, and get a debit card, right, and understand how money goes into the bank account to the debit card, and you could pay for things with a debit card, right?
100%.
And that way people can also figure out, right, what's better for them. For some people, right, they prefer cash because they know what they're spending right there on the dot.
Yep.
Other people prefer cards or debit cards because they could just see a statement and realize what they spent, what they didn't spend, and what's the point of all of this, right?
Yep.
So again, that's a whole personal thing, but give those examples. And then I think in 8th grade, you should also be giving the examples of, the time value of money, right?
Yep.
Is how I would phrase it, right?
Yep.
How many hours or things you need to work to pay for something, or how many,
Absolutely.
Thing, or what's the value of $1 really is what should really be taught.
That was one of my favorite things that I kind of started doing when I was working in retail, and it's
retail.
I make X dollars an hour. I want this item. How many hours do I need to pick up at work to buy that item? Right,
right.
That's
and typically I don't know about you guys, but I was taught this in like 2nd or 3rd grade math, those funny questions they always gave you, right? It was always God, this is so useless. Why is he buying 3 monkeys? Why do you need 3 monkeys, right?
But why don't you need 3 monkeys?
But what I'm saying is swap out some of those words, and it's you're learning it from a very early age. Then I would say again, you teach personal finance in 11th grade, or your senior year of high school, right? I don't know how college timelines work, but I think you could probably still get away with teaching it in the senior year of high school, and teach them
I think
about.
Junior year is good personally because I think they can also roll in a lot of your college application process, maybe some of your FOSFA stuff into the same class, which would be really helpful.
That's true. So there you go. So I would say, teach it again in, 11th grade and go over loan processes, interest, right? Teach them that formula. I don't know if you guys remember that formula. It was I equals RT or something, right? Interest equals the PRT. I equals PRT, principal times rate times term.
Yep.
Right? Teach them about retirement accounts. I think that's the best time to also learn about a retirement account. So you guys can learn what's the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. What's the difference between a traditional 401k and a Roth 401k? If you're running your own business, what's the difference between the SBA loans and the non-SBA loans, right? What's the difference between a personal loan and a loan backed by a credit equity or something, right? So it's there's all these different little nuanced concepts. They're really all fancy words at the end of the day, I'll be honest, right? They're really all just fancy words, but it goes a long way in trying to understand all of this. And I think that demystifying of personal finance should really happen in 11th grade, but the basics should be taught in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it from there, I think is just, with everything else we discussed, you're kind of on your own. Apply it as you see fit, right? I learned Python. Right, I use it when I need it, and when I don't need it, I don't use it. Right, it's stuff like that. So, that's at least my thoughts on it.
I kind of agree with almost everything you've said, and I think some other really good examples that could be taught, and I think I actually did go through these in my own personal finance class, is something along the lines of John makes $40,000 a year. John has these expenses, right? And then like how much money does John have left at the end of the year, right? Like those types of questions are really helpful because you actually break down his finances. It's like, hey, okay, he's going to get this much taken out in tax. His car payment is this much. His mortgage is this much. His, food, utilities, his phone bill, whatever miscellaneous expenses are this much. And then you can physically see, hey, he's got this much left. Or maybe he's got negative dollars left. And obviously, there's a problem now, right? And maybe then the teacher can go into saying, like, how can we reduce John's payments or John's bills to kind of bring him back into the positive, right? Like you said, kind of just teach value of money, how to balance your books, how to make sure that you're spending less than you earn.
And the way you would, honestly, and I think the way you would teach that is take a really simple example from businesses, right? Like pick your favorite business in the world. Let's say it's Apple, right? In Nine's case, right? Say you picked Apple, right? Just pull up their what they call the cash flow sheet. Money coming in, money going out, right? Just pull that up and see how that looks and just go based off that, right? Obviously, you're not going to have operating expenses or any of these fancy terminologies, right? But have a simplified version that says, hey, I'm making X dollars working this job, X dollars working this, X dollars selling this,
and
I'm spending $15 on Netflix, $10 on a book, $25 on miscellaneous expenses, and I call it a day, right? Like,
that's my thoughts. Nine, what are your thoughts? Experience in high, not in high school. It was actually in elementary school where they kind of had like this fake McDonald's store set up, and everyone in my class got their own like kind of job inside the store, and somehow I ended up being like the bookkeeper. And like sometimes I think like I had to work as a bookkeeper for a whole day for a fake McDonald's corporation that was like set up in like some classroom, and like I think that was a really good experience because like I was balancing books for fake McDonald's in like 5th grade. So like where else?
And see, I think that's the key thing right there. It needs to be interactive.
Yep.
It needs to be, the students getting involved. Because if some teacher or if I myself, I'm standing up there lecturing for 45 minutes on why you should open a checking account and why it's good for your life.
Mm-hmm. No one's
going to care. Right? Like, it needs to be interactive.
Yeah.
I think like a cool way to do that, right? It would be like to have the kids like do a field trip to a bank and like, with parents' permission, open a bank account, kids savings account, kind of like, and even like have the school maybe deposit like $100 in each.
I did that in elementary school actually, where I went to visit a bank and I saw like it was like your local bank, but they had like a vault, right?
Yeah.
And so you like saw the vault and you were like, God damn, this is cool, right? Like
I want to be in there,
right? Like I kind of saw it as like, ooh, like
look at all that money.
No, it wasn't even money. It was just, it was like, wow, look at all this space. I could do this, and look at that wall. Just looking at the door of a vault, right, is like the craziest thing ever. Because that thing is like 55 layers of like reinforced steel. That like, good luck getting into that, right?
Yep.
Like, but anyway, let's wrap up on final thoughts. Nine, what are your final comments on the subject matter?
I think we all agree on personal finance should be taught. I think if anything, the earlier the better. Right? Of course, not to attack kids was like advanced knowledge of how to write a paycheck and stuff like that, but like kind of easy.
I don't even know how to write a paycheck, to be honest with you.
Well, you should probably learn. But ease them into it. I would say it doesn't have to even be a 1-year thing. I think it'd be, in my opinion, kind of a gradual thing. Maybe teach them a little bit in the elementary school, and then teach them a little bit more in middle school, and then finally do the advanced stuff early. Senior high school, but not, of course, we talked about this, not too late. We want them to kind of like learn this before they hit the workforce, unless they're in a rare case like 4 here where he enters the workforce pretty much when he's a baby. But we want them to be educated because the more educated they are, the more they avoid falling into dire financial situations where they have to learn because their back's against the wall.
That's fair. 4, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm totally with you. I think that's something that should be taught early. It's something that should definitely be taught. I think the schools definitely need to play some type of hand in this because, you'll end up with, I think, far more ready for life students at the end of senior year if this is something that they teach earlier and better. And like I said, I do think that when applicable, parents, you should be kind of really helping your kids along with these topics, right? They're trying to get a job. help them open that bank account. Take the initiative because sometimes they just might not know to ask.
Yeah. I agree with both. I agree with both the points you said, right? Like, I think it all makes sense. 9 to your last point there. I'm losing my train of thought, but repeat your last point. You said there, 9.
You should learn how to write a check.
No, that I should. No, I know how to write a check. I know how to write a paycheck.
I knew.
But I forgot what 9's last point is. Maybe I'll replay it back and explain to him after it, right? But yeah, no, I'm in agreement with everything you guys said, right? And even and this is the point, right? That although you learn it in school, I think there's definitely a difference between the academic side of it and the in real life kind of experiencing it, right? Yeah. I think it should be a little bit of both. I think once you start learning it in 8th grade and 11th grade or 12th grade or whatever, that's why I really like the 12th grade because, you're getting that whole background into it, and then we're kind of just chucking you into the fire with 50 grand in loans, right? So it's like, that's, I think, the big thing there. It's like learning it and evolving it and doing it, right? And just being, just be honest, being honest with yourself, right? Just like for my example, like I'm fat now, right? Like I know I'm fat. I know what I got to do to fix it. Now I just got to go and fix it. So it's the same thing with your finances, right? Like my finances suck. I know what I got to do to fix it. I have to go and fix it. And I think that's the most key thing here is just being honest with yourself. But that's all we have today for
that has been
personal finance be taught.
Exactly. Yep.
But guys, this is episode I think 17 here, right? So we've passed 4 months of episodes now too. In regular 5 months? Oh damn. Of episodes here. It's a wild ride. I can't wait to see what more episodes. We have so much more in the pipeline waiting for you guys, right? That we could go on. But if you guys have any ideas, right? We love the Instagram DMs you guys are sending us. Send us more DMs. Hit us up with messages. Hit us up with, anything that you think is applicable to the podcast. We've kind of expanded around technology, but go into other topics that we know of as well. And just hit us up, and we're happy to hear from you guys. But anyways, guys, this has been for the 429 podcast. I'm 2.
I'm 9.
I'm 4. And we will see you guys on TechCast Friday. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.